song.
Ready?
Hello and welcome to Rhythm and Pixels, a video game music podcast. This is episode 25-9, just a couple episodes away from the season finale of video game music. We are your hosts. My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm Pernell.
And every week we listen to the best, or at least our favorites, game music from all consoles and from all generations. Every week we pick a topic that sounds interesting or that has been chosen by our listeners, and we dig into it. We have some fun here.
And we're on our eternal quest for outdoing The Simpsons for most seasons.
Yes, well, we're gonna last. I don't think we can last longer than The Simpsons, but maybe we can last longer than a true crime podcast. We gotta set the bar lower.
I can get behind that. I mean, maybe if we had more memorable characters like Moe Sislak and Barney Gumble, maybe we'd have a shot.
No, maybe we'll get there. But yeah, so thank you everybody for listening. We have it's a special show for us because we have a special guest on our show. We've listened to some of the music in the past, and I know I have mentioned the albums in the past. So on the label GameChops, we have the producer, the musician of the album Zelda Chill, and most recently Zelda Chill Part 2, which is a lo-fi Zelda series. We have Mikel, all the way from Germany, joining us on the show. Mikel, thank you for joining us.
Hey, nice to be here.
Thanks for being on our show. So yeah, I love how, and for me, it's a fairly recent thing of seeing not just lo-fi hip-hop or hip-hop instrumentals becoming so popular on the internet and worldwide, but seeing a lot of video game arrangements within hip-hop and within the lo-fi. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got interested in hip-hop and then how that intersected with Zelda?
Yeah, I got interested with hip-hop pretty early when I was 5 or 6. I heard my first rap songs. And but I always loved the beats and stuff. But when I was, I think, when I was 14, that was when I started making my own beats. And I've always liked sorry, so I've always liked the Zelda games and games in general and soundtracks, and I think about 2008 when I started making music, I made my first remixes, but I didn't release them. And I think 2017 is when lo-fi was a bit bigger.
Yes.
That was when I did it again, because these were finally hip-hop beats that really fit to video game music.
Yes, I feel that, and I'm not sure if this is the same for a lot of people, but I feel like my musical tastes have suddenly become mainstreamed, more popular. So the instrumental music that I really enjoy, suddenly there's an audience for it.
Yeah.
So what
I can say,
yeah.
I can also say that for people like me who weren't generally into that style of music, when you cross-sect it with VGM, which I am a fan of, it has a way of getting you in the door to appreciate what you were missing out on before.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah, definitely.
Before we get into some original game music and some music that we really enjoy, I'm curious about some of your musical influences. You said you listened to a lot of, got interested in rap music at a younger age. What were some of the early artists and songs that really got you interested?
Well, I think the biggest inspiration was Dr. Dre and West and East Coast hip-hop from the 90s.
Yes.
And then Eminem, 50 Cent, and a lot of German rap.
Oh, yeah. I'm not familiar with a lot of German rap artists. Are there any names that maybe we could take note of and explore? SSEO. He also raps on these boom bap kind of beats. Yes, yeah.
And Genetic, they're also from my hometown. They I think they're mostly inspired by Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh,
and yeah.
Now we have a friend of our show who lives in the UK, in Britain, and And he also has a podcast of music. And do you know that of the Wu-Tang Clan PlayStation game?
No?
So there's a fighting game, but all of the characters are members of the Wu-Tang Clan, and they did it.
Okay.
And they wrote a soundtrack to the game. You might be interested. It's very
nice. Yeah.
It's very instrumental, but there's a few vocal tracks that are
okay. Nice. Yeah, sounds cool.
That are very cool.
The only game that I know of is Def Jam, Fight for New York. That's with a lot of rappers and stuff, and I loved playing that when I was a kid.
Yeah, me too. It always seems so. It kind of makes sense that they would fight each other, but at the same time, I always imagine the Wu-Tang Clan working together. You know, they wouldn't. They wouldn't be fighting each other.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the main story mode is exactly that. Like, you know how those fighting games do it, where they'll start out with like they're all just fighting because they're trying to figure out what's going on here, and then eventually they learn that the big bad is making them fight. You know how it goes.
It was something with the 36 chambers. They had to fight their way through. So Pernell and I, we chose specifically Zelda music for today, and sort of to celebrate your Zelda and Chill albums. And we asked for you to bring some music that maybe you really enjoyed or were inspired by. And I think my last question before we get started is, do you play a lot of games now, or what games are you like really interested in these days?
Yeah, sadly, I don't have much time for playing games. Or when I try to play a game, I mostly think I could be doing something different, or I want to do music or something.
Fine.
But
I understand.
But I think games like Breath of the Wild, I can't enjoy any other game since then because it was too good.
Yes.
And now I'm giving Cyberpunk a try.
Oh, interesting. I haven't turned that one on, or I haven't looked up much about it. But it sounds like you're very interested in open world, kind of world where you can create your own adventure, maybe.
Yeah, normally yes, but they're also the most time consuming.
Yes.
So they're mostly actually I would prefer if they would release more smaller games, or games that are not open world and stuff.
Yes,
where you can just jump in and exactly.
This is where Pernell and I differ a little bit, because I don't play a lot. I play maybe one or two games. I'm very focused on rhythm games and fighting games where I can play little bits here and there and just try to improve. Whereas
Pernell plays everything and anything. But what you mentioned before makes a lot of sense there, because I like open world games a lot. I enjoy playing them, but time, both due to my personal life and simply due to the sheer amount of options available to play, you find yourself like dipping your toe into like 5 games and never truly getting the full experience. Because
exactly.
We were just discussing this before you came on, about how I feel some role playing games they're just downright not respecting my time. I feel like there's a lot of other, like, they could cut, maybe not just narrative, could cut a little bit more corners. The intersection between narrative and gameplay could just be a little bit closer for my tastes. I know that's just a personal preference, because I'm kind of in the same boat. I could be cooking or working or doing some other things. So let's start with some music. Our first track, we asked for you to pick a few songs that you really enjoyed or were inspired by. And the first one we have here is the theme from the game The Last of Us. And it is composed by Gustavo Santaolalla. This was the theme song from The Last of Us, composed by Gustavo Santaolalla. And wow, that was definitely a build up of a journey there.
Yeah.
Really much. I enjoyed how the guitar carried it through the rest of the track. And I enjoyed, you can hear, I don't know if there's a term for it, but when on an acoustic guitar, when they thump with their hand.
Yeah.
When they kind of slap
exactly.
the wood.
Yeah, on the body of the guitar. Yeah, let's not use that term though, Pernell. We'll call it
Jeebus.
But no, it almost has like a hollow kind of kick drum sound. But then slowly there's some more instrumentation, and it's almost a little electronic. That's really fantastic. That's very, very good. So what is it about this track that spoke to you?
Well, a lot of soundtracks are like with orchestra and stuff, and really epic. And I just love that he used more unique instruments, and I think the melody is really, it just fits to the atmosphere of the game.
Yes.
I mean, it's pretty dark, but it's also very emotional, and just the way he includes all of the other instruments and the build-up and everything is just it's one of the soundtracks where I can't pause the song, or I just always have to listen to the end, and it's just really great.
You can't just go through the opening menu. You have to listen to it to the end to experience everything, right? Yeah.
It's interesting there too. Like Last of Us is very much, like you said, it's a very emotional game. The OST that accompanies it throughout, not even just the open, but just all of it, is very well suited and well fits the game's atmosphere. Though I find myself feeling like, especially now after listening to your selection, I need to go back and actually listen to the OST by itself, because I have a challenge when it comes to playing these narrative style games where the music becomes a part of the game. And then the challenge is that it makes it hard for me to pull the music back out to go, I'm going to listen to this here because it's so good. It's just more like, I remember that entire scene and it hit me like a sack of hammers. But this is a solid, good choice right here. I feel like I also remember the loading screen when you start the game being a bit lengthy too. So like you get a chance to hear a fair bit of this while just waiting for your game to start too.
Yeah.
So it plays through the music will play through the loading screen too?
Just the starting the game, like when you say start game, load file.
Is this a game you also enjoyed, Michael?
Yeah, the first one. I've tried the second one, but sadly I again thought I could do something different. But I really loved the first one. I played it on PlayStation 3, and then I got it again for PlayStation 4 back then, because it was just such a great story. And
I gotta say, genuine curiosity level here. As a person who also loved the first game and bought the second when it came out, but never started it because, time constraints. Despite how you came away from the sequel, did you still feel as though it was like worth playing for the sake of getting that next area of the plot hammered out?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think Naughty Dog make great games in general. And it was one of the few games where I thought, okay, I gotta get it directly, and I want to know how the story continues.
Okay.
But I heard a lot of people don't like the story or the game in general, so maybe it's good that I didn't finish it and that I just remember the first story.
I've had that sort of thing happen in the past where, like, you play through a game and you're like, so now people's like, what'd you think? It's like, I'm going to remember it as the first game. That's all I need.
Yeah, if the narrative and if the story was perfect on its own, maybe it didn't need a sequel. The nice thing about modern games, maybe maybe the bad thing, is that because a lot of things live digitally now, that we can always go back and try them again when we have time, or or maybe they come back a second time around, maybe remastered.
You know how many games I have right now where I can go back? And it's like, I only got 10 hours here, 50 games.
I picked the one game and I'm going to play it. That's all I'm going to do. Just don't have time to do too many. All right, so Pernell, we are on to your first pick. So we're on to some Zelda music.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have?
And I started getting a little nostalgia, actually, since this was the topic. Because I've always been fond of this game, but I haven't played it since 2001. So I have it on my 3DS, though, so I started playing a bit of it because of this episode choice. So this track is called Unicorn's Cave, and it is from The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons. And it's composed by Minako, Adachi, and Kiyohiro Sada. You're listening to the Unicorn's Cave theme, level 5, from the game The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons, for the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. Game Boy Color, composed by Minako, Adachi, and Kiyohiro Sada. So, I've always been fond of these particular two. Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, and to another extent, kind of also Link's Awakening, though I don't think it was 100% on the same thing. Because 100% bona fide, Oracles and Seasons weren't actually done by Nintendo. They were done by Capcom.
Oh, were they?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
So they feel very different.
That explains why Koji Kondo, the classic composer for these Nintendo Zelda games, is not on the list.
Mm-hmm. And it shows, this is so we have very few opportunities in this system, or in gaming, to see someone else's take on Zelda. We have the Hyrule Warrior series that have been recently coming out. We have Oracles of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, and to a lesser extent, Link's Awakening. Unfortunately, we also have the Philips CDI games. Yeah.
Those weren't Nintendo produced at all.
Exactly.
Right?
They were solely some random company from Philips. I don't even know who they are, but those games were terrible. But point is, it's rare that we get to see another company get their hands on Zelda and be told, do what you want, as long as you try not to screw it up. And this game has some really cool elements to the OST itself is very... I think it stands out from other Zelda games as far as how it's composed and how it sounds. There's more to the melodies, because I feel a lot of general Zelda tracks and the later games were more kind of structured around atmosphere. Yes, and not around gaming sound.
Particularly the modern ones. Michael mentioned Breath of the Wild earlier, and it's very adaptive music to what you're doing. This one, the first half of this song is almost it gets dissonant. There's a little chords that don't quite match, but then it goes to this section, and the chords become not major, but they kind of get back to. It's more familiar territory, but there's a section where it's so dissonant. But I think this might be our only classic chiptune track on the show today. And it's from you. Usually I'm picking the old school music.
That's right. Yeah. That's a chest thump deserving.
Now this brings up a question for me. So for Michael, we don't have a lot of the classic music today on the show, but does any of these classic sounds have any? Do they stir any memories for you, or do you have any familiarity with the classic Game Boy or Nintendo sound?
Yeah, a little bit. I didn't have any consoles or Game Boys when I was a child, so but funnily enough, I started playing Oracle of Seasons on my emulator on my smartphone.
Oh, good.
In 2004. And the Pokemon games, those were the only ones that I played when I was a child. Sadly, also only on the emulator, but I actually liked the chiptune sound because of the limited instruments they had. they had to come up with nice melodies.
Yes, they had to compose in a way that was restrained, and it often produced a lot of very creative moments because they only had so many voices. One thing I like about the Zelda and Chill albums is your instrumentation is very unique and very not modern. Not so much modern isn't the right word, but it's very your own instrumentation and interpretations of the music. Was where in some remixes they might have just taken the original song and may have processed it and done some things with that. What are some of the instruments that were used on the album that you're most proud of?
Well, it's mostly digital plugins.
Sure.
And plugins I used most were Omnisphere 2 and the expansion Keyscape, which is a lot of keyboards and pianos and Rhodes and I used those the most. So it was more acoustic instruments and less synthesizers.
Right.
Well, one thing I
much
can
more of a
say,
rompler. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say to you, since you mentioned that you started playing Oracle of Seasons recently, earlier you were discussing how you would like for more games to kind of just open world mechanics because of time constraints and all. These classic Zelda games, despite how old they are, I can genuinely say to you that to my experience, they all hold up. Like if you're playing them all on emulators for the first time right now, this is one of those experiences where you will probably appreciate it just as much playing it for the first time today as we did playing it back in the 90s and 80s, or in this case 2001. They're succinct experiences. They have side quests, but nothing that ever takes up too much of your time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're perfect for just jumping in and playing a short round.
Yeah, that's but still being part of the main story. It's nice that when games can do that. Pernell.
Hey!
All right, so we're gonna move on to my next track. We talked about a lot of atmosphere. So this is from a newer game, newer title on the Nintendo Switch. I'm sorry. This is called the Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity, and I couldn't find specific composers for the individual pieces of music. They're just an enormous list of composers, which is not helpful. So
is it like the Omega Force? Is it like, do they go by like the Omega Force team, or is it like a Tecmo Koei sound group or something?
I don't know. It was just a long list of names, and that was all listed on the official soundtrack that was released in Japan. So sometimes they're broken out. I think that might be done after the fact by a little bit of detective work, but I don't read Japanese, so I can't help. This track is called the Prelude to Calamity, which is the music that plays while you're viewing the map from Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity. You're listening to Prelude to Calamity, which is the map music from the game Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity for the Nintendo Switch. And this has big, sweeping, like the imagery of a landscape of mountains and clouds really comes to mind. In the section where the drums and the cellos, they all cut out, and then there's just this section of just strings and this little piano section. It's just beautiful right here.
Yeah.
It's a simple device.
That's another
it just
fine
gets
example.
me every time it can get me.
I think it's just another fine example of what happens when other studios are able to take the reins at composing for a Zelda universe game. This is
it's still very a Zelda song, because there's something about the kind of military snare drum to me always reminds me of Zelda music. So I hear that and I think Zelda's Link is marching towards something.
And this is
No,
this is when you open the map. This tune plays.
It does, yeah. It seems to loop
Wow.
shortly, but you can imagine how long are you going to stay on the map screen?
Yeah, because it sounds like the ending music or something.
Right.
Yeah.
This is something we see a lot with a classic game music too, for like the Nintendo or the Mega Drive, where the music composed for some of these sections is much longer than the player would ever really see. And so it's interesting exploring the soundtracks and hearing all these melodies and chord progressions that that as a 10-year-old kid would have never even experienced.
Well, you got to remember that this one, keep in mind, I haven't played it myself for reasons which you'll hear in a second, but this is not a normal Zelda game. Like Age of Calamity is the second Muso-style Zelda title that was produced by Tecmo, Koei, and Omega Force. So on the map screen, you may well not just be going to the map, like choosing the stage. Like there may be you choosing your character, and then there are equipment loadout. You might be choosing some side missions to take on, stuff like that. Like they give you quite a bit to do to customize your characters before starting up on the stages in these titles. But this actually gives me a question that I'd like to ask Michael too that comes to mind, which is that when you play, a lot of times when you play a game or you get into a franchise, you go into it with a specific, set of interests. Like I like these games because of X, Y, and Z. And then sometimes, depending on the life of the franchise, it might go in strange, cool directions. Yep. But who knows what ultimately is what you want as these things happen? Like, will you still like it? Will you not? So then my question to you is, given what you have experienced with Zelda, past and present, what do you still feel you most enjoy out of the franchise? What brings you to it every time?
Yeah, well, Breath of the Wild was the only Zelda that I finished playing. And I've only started playing the other games because, like I said, we didn't have consoles and stuff. But what I like the most in each game is always the music and the design. That's what keeps bringing me back to them. And because, like I said, we didn't have the consoles, I listened to the music the whole time because it's just so great.
That's going to be interesting to hear too, because a lot of people come at it from the other direction. So they start at the beginning and they get to the end, and then they go, based on that experience, this is what I come to get out of these games. I'm looking for it. So if you're coming at it the other direction, it should be interesting when your journey is done to see what your ultimate take will end up being, because you'll have a perspective that will be very uniquely your own, and also because of the reverse order of your experiencing the titles.
Thanks to emulation and even some of the re-releases on our modern systems and on the computer. There's a whole group of people who, like yourself and myself, who never really played a lot of these at a younger age. We get to experience them again with a new perspective that maybe I would not have had years ago. So let's move on to some more music. So we've asked you to pick a second song to play, and you chose from the game series Grand Theft Auto. This is San Andreas. This is the theme song composed by Michael Hunter, which I believe is one of the few songs composed for the game that's not licensed from popular music or from another record label. So here we go. This is the theme from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. You're listening to the theme from the game Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. This is composed by Michael Hunter and not Dr. Dre. This is unusually funky. I am into that. I've never played a modern Grand Theft Auto game. So I don't know much about this one, except that it does have like that kind of old school West Coast vibe. And now I'm really getting that old school West Coast vibe. I think it's pretty obvious why you like this one, right?
Yeah, sure.
Is this a game that you've also enjoyed, or is this something just a soundtrack that you're familiar with?
No. I've played this a lot. My favorite Grand Theft Auto is Vice City, but I played San Andreas with a friend when I was younger, and I've always on purpose missed the school bus. So I had to go to his house so we could play San Andreas.
Slick.
And we played it for ages and ages, and I dreamt of it, and it was just this is exactly the type of music that I like most. This West Coast G-Funk 90s hip-hop, and also released a small album this year which is completely in this style. So
great.
That's why I chose this.
That's good. I do like it. Does have the feeling of some of those classic samples, but it's definitely some unique instruments in there as well, and it's a little faster too. I think a little more up tempo, which I think is great for a video game. Kind of gets you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sparks your imagination for, I guess, doing nefarious things.
When I think about it, I feel like, my brother played through the entirety of San Andreas. I played some of it, but as always happens, I get sidetracked by all the side stuff you can do. But San Andreas was one of the rare ones where, even though you did commit crimes and stuff during the game, the overall goal of the narrative was actually not to be a criminal for the most part. Really? Your character was just kind of brought into that fold because that's where he grew up. And he was trying to help get his community out of that corruption, and the police were playing them too. Actually, in that game, which was one of the big final crescendo points of the narrative. But that's partly what I liked about it. It's there are folks out there who don't necessarily choose that life per se, but when you come up around it and you come up in it, sometimes you're forced to navigate that environment as opposed to being a main contributor. And I think that's what CJ was in that game for the most part.
Yeah,
some realism there, huh?
Oh yeah.
That's good. It's always interesting to me when I think of these games in particular are very American gangster culture. When they gain popularity in Europe and overseas, it's always interesting to me, what do they think of us,
Exactly what happens in San Andreas.
There's actually something really interesting about that in general, because it's not even just the games, and it comes to mind just like we were talking earlier, how Michael was referring to a lot of, East Coast and West Coast rappers for major influence. A lot of our entertainment like American entertainment like goes all over the place. Like it makes me think about, for example, if people like in Japan were listening to a bunch of rap and then like a black person shows up, you know, as a tourist in the area, like they're like, oh, it's like the guy from that song I was listening to. I'm like, no, I'm here for Pocky. It's like a certain influence that comes if all of their exposure comes from the media culture as opposed to like interactions and such.
I mean, like you, Pernell, and in particular, are tall. So I would love to see you in Japan one day.
I've been told that my time in Japan would be a lot of people asking me if I'm a rapper and if I play basketball. Like from actual like Japanese friends, and I was like, that's pretty much what they're going to bug you about. And then
just tell them you are. Just say that you are.
I think but how far would that go? And I might say it, and then I'll be at a bar making that comment, and then some angry guy was like, "So you play basketball?" I'm like, yeah, like
someone's gonna
challenge you.
Are you worried someone's going to challenge you to basketball?
They're going to challenge me. It's like, I'm going to beat this American at basketball. It's like, whoa, slow down, fella. I just ate this whole bowl of ramen. I'm kind of full, and I need to take a nap. Maybe tomorrow.
Oh, man. I'm so glad we got some classic hip-hop like sounding music on the show today. Around all of the epic Zelda music that Pernell and I chose. Speaking of which, Pernell, we're up to you again. What's your second song?
A track that I'm genuinely shocked I never played on the show because it's probably one of my favorite 2 or 3 tracks from the game. So I'm going to pick it. This comes from The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and the track is titled, it's just the Forest Temple theme from that game. Mm-hmm. And the composer of it is, we were just talking about him, Koji Kondo.
It's getting crazy now. It's kind of scary, actually.
That means it's doing its job, because that place is scary.
Alright, here we go.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Forest Temple theme from the game The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for the N64 and then like every other freaking Nintendo system via re-release, composed by Koji Kondo. I have a general, lambasted opinion of Ocarina of Time. In addition to that, the music as well. Because in most cases, I'm not much a fan of atmospheric music in action-based games. Like I want that Zelda-esque theme, for example. Like I want dungeon themes, But for some reason, when I got to this dungeon and the atmospheric theme that plays within it hit on all cylinders. Like Rob commented in the break that it sounded scary. And I feel as though that was a very appropriate reaction to it because the Forest Temple is sort of like feels like a darker version of the forest you grew up in. And you're dealing with like pogos and such in there. It's probably one of the many bosses, like P-O-E. I know it's like pogos is like saying the same word twice, but
like a raven, like the raven.
No, that'd be cool if they actually were though, like Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah. But this music that plays throughout the dungeon it's all around you. Mm-hmm. It feels like it's bouncing off the walls as you run around.
Yeah.
And it was also the first temple in the game I got legitimately lost in, so I spent like 2.5 hours in it. So I just heard this. I got lost. Like
it sounds like there's ducks or birds laughing at you.
They probably are. I'd be laughing at me too. I was lost for 2.5 hours. Yeah, people talk about how hard and confusing the water temple is. I'm like, no, I got right through that, no problem. This is the one that had me stuck.
This is an interesting sounding. I don't think I haven't played a lot of these, honestly, but I've never explored this soundtrack. It's very odd.
It's a worthy play for sure. Like, I think even though it was the first 3D Zelda game, I still feel like it was still fairly concise in what you could do, because it was almost like if you took Kakariko Village from A Link to the Past and just gave it layers, like made it 3D with layers. It's still the same size town with the same number of events in it. It's just now you can get on the roof in some places, you know? So they didn't bloat it. They didn't bloat it at this point. It was just they changed the perspective. And that was kind of nice, because it makes me feel like I can actually complete it. So it's a good game. I always would complain about the music or lack thereof. Yeah. And in fact, the Shadow Temple is where I stopped playing for years, because like, this doesn't even have a sail to it.
Yeah, I also stopped at the Shadow Temple.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
Yes! Someone else who had the same experience. I'm glad to hear that.
All right, so I'm going to play some music from a game that I think people have a mixed opinion on, and this is from... this is from the Legend of Zelda Four Swords Adventure. This was Game Boy Advance, Pernell?
Adventure was GameCube.
Oh, the GameCube, okay. And this is a song called Frozen Hyrule from The Legend of Zelda Four Swords Adventures. I am a sucker for an arpeggio. Like, that's all there is. I think that's... I'm easy to please. Just a little bit of an arpeggio on top of a string section or a piano chord. That's what gets me going. So you're listening to the Frozen Temple from Zelda... No, that was the Forest Temple. I'm sorry. You're listening to the... oh my gosh.
At least it's Frozen Highlands or something.
Frozen Hyrule from The Legend of Zelda Four Swords Adventure. And this is an arrangement of the Dark World. From the Legend of Zelda Link to the Past, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, if you're listening to this podcast on headphones or in your car, I encourage you to turn the music up. Go back and turn the music up, because the bass section is very clear in this song. And so it's always nice to re-listen to some of this music, not playing through television speakers or not playing through your home stereo system. And you hear all of the instruments that the composers added to the music.
Now, are both of you familiar with what the Four Sword Adventure style games are?
Yep.
A little bit. It's like competitive Zelda. Is that right?
Yes.
Like Zelda as a sport.
It's honestly really cool in that regard. The only thing that would make it better at this point is if they came up with like if you beat the game, they unlock like a ranger version or something where it ranges the stages, because Zelda Four Swords games are multiple Zelda characters. They come up with some ridiculous plot element to make Link split into 4 copies of himself. Mm-hmm. And you're going on the adventure and you're solving puzzles as a collective team using various Zelda items, but the competitive angle is who can get the most money while you're doing it. So the thing I loved most about when I would play these games is that depending on where you would go, like if you went to a dungeon or something, like a small section, you would leave the screen and you'd be doing everything on like a Game Boy Advance screen, so no one could see what you're doing. But if you start collecting money or getting like, you know, hookups while you're in there, the music will make an indication that this guy's getting paid. What's going on? What's he doing? Where's Pernell at? It's like, I'm sitting I'm in the corner, I'm like, yeah, ding, 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 give him money.
So the music adapts to what players are doing, and so I can know what you're doing based on the music that's sort of ramping up?
Well, not so much music, it's just the sound effects.
Oh,
like,
the sound
you'll
effects,
still
okay.
hear the sound effects of like me collecting money, but if you're getting like a huge pot with like 100 single rupees in it, it's gonna go ding, 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 ding. It's just like someone can hear that, and they're like, who's getting all this money? Where is he at? So at that point, it becomes this weird like angle of like, yeah, find this guy and take him out. You know, it's very unique for the Zelda formula. I want to say Capcom did this too. I have to double check. I don't recall 100% Nintendo did the Four Swords games or not.
Now,
But
Michael, you mentioned some of your favorite games, and titles were longer solo individual experiences. Are you a fan of multiplayer games or competitive games at all?
Not so much. More like games like Smash Brothers or Mario Kart when friends are over, but I don't play online.
No, yeah.
You might like this one then, because it's a similar element. Like, there's competition, but similar to like Smash Brothers with friends or Mario Kart with friends, there's no like major hierarchy of like, I'm just better than you. It's more like we're just kind of putzing around, doing Zelda things.
That's a good point. Like all these Nintendo games you mentioned, like they're really fun with your friends. Nintendo must just know how to, like the Mario Party and the Mario Kart, they must really know like what makes a good, fun game to play with your friends that could also ruin those friendships.
Yeah, definitely.
Mario Party is the king of that to this day. I don't care what anybody says. It's the biggest friendship ruining game out there. Next to maybe Dokapon.
When you brought that over, I think we were married. Christy and I were married at the time, and you brought that over. We all played it together. It was the one Mario Party where he was
the capsules.
Yeah, he was spitting out the capsules, and that was the most unfair game.
Because I won. Because I won. Isn't it?
You have this thing where you only like to play games that you know you can win.
Not true. Not true. Just games I have a chance. Like, so Michael, Rob and I get competitive every once in a blue moon with games. But the thing is, like, there are definitely certain games where, like, Rob is pretty much going to win, and certain games where it's perceived that I'm going to win. Like, fighting games are Rob's shtick. Like, he's going to beat me. I'll try. I'll try very hard, but I'm going to lose. Dance games, Rob will take me out on those because he just...
We were talking about like something you played back in 2001, and I was like, I think that's when I started playing Dance Dance Revolution, and I stopped playing anything else. And now it's 2020. That's all I'm still doing. So
that actually makes me wonder too. So I know you said that you don't generally get into tons of like competitive games, Michael, but if you were to think of one game or game franchise and such that you feel as though your skills stand, like if I can play this game very well, what would that be?
I think it would be Mario Kart 8 because I've played the tracks so often. But I thought I was really good, but then I played with some friends during lockdown, and I was really bad. So,
oh man,
that's
same with Smash Brothers. A good friend of mine came over, and I can't enjoy the game anymore.
That happened to me with Smash Brothers too.
That happens a lot with fighting games because you learn the games with a small group of people. And you think you're very good at them, and then you go to another group of people or to a tournament, and you learn that you only know half the game.
In my case, I know that the game is called Super Smash something. Like, oh my god! Like I will say, like Mario Kart 8 though was a phenomenal Mario Kart game. Like up until that point, I think my favorite was still somewhere between Double Dash and 64, and 8 just kind of took it all. And for the record, best track is the airport level. Love that track.
Yeah.
That's funny. We talked a lot about Mario Kart in the last episode. It just came out of nowhere. Also, you did play the Koopa Beach song with all the whistles. Okay, I'm going to turn... this track is coming down, and we're going to get into the last part of our show that is called the bonus round.
Bonus round!
The bonus round is where we play covers and remixes and arrangements on our theme, and this is all where we also like to promote and showcase music from our guests. And since Mikel's latest album, Zelda Chill 2, has just been released and has been smashing it on streaming and on digital sales. And I think there's a vinyl album out as well. We'll have links to all of that on our website and in the show notes on the podcast. But we asked for Mikel to pick one of the songs he's proud of, or one of the songs he really enjoyed off the album, to play for us. So do you mind introducing that first song?
Oh yeah, the song is Hyrule Castle from A Link to the Past.
Back. That was Hyrule Castle from Zelda Chill 2. That was composed by Koji Kondo and arranged by Mikel. Mikel, that was dark. I liked that. That was nasty.
Thanks. Yeah.
I really particularly enjoyed that bass guitar very much.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny because this was one of the first songs where I thought this won't fit on this album. I want to take it out, and I'm glad I didn't.
No, me too.
I very much enjoy this track. I guess I said it during the break. I'm not sure if that was the intended version or the intended sound for it, but I genuinely felt like this could be something that you could hear like at a jazz club or just a general nightclub over drinks with your friends. It's got a nice background atmospheric sound to it in a way that it just fits that environment to the letter.
Yeah, something about the dark sound of the bass and those minor chords were very dark, but with that little organ sound, it's kind of sexy too. So dark and sexy, I think, is the place to be.
Yeah, this was a mix of like this jazzy type of music with the contrabass or the double bass. Yeah, and then mixed with like these West Coast inspired chords and this song and Serenade of Water, the one before this track, are the two tracks that are most inspired by Dr. Dre and West Coast. So.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I do have a dumb question for you, though. So, as a guy who isn't the most familiar with this genre of music and would be interested in looking into more of it, would you say that, despite you saying that you didn't think this would really fit on the album initially, that it still would be considered to be lo-fi?
No, not really, because the first album was intended to be lo-fi, and this one I tried not to market as a lo-fi album, because I didn't choose any, like, on some songs I didn't choose any lo-fi effects, and was just intended to be like a hip-hop, rap, or chill-hop album.
So this would be more like a chill hop track.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you had any vocalists approach you?
Yeah, I'm working with a good friend, actually, and she can sing really good, and that's also going to be the next project. I think in 3 days, her first song is going to come out on Spotify, and yeah, that's I'm really looking forward and working together with her in the future.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, I would imagine also on these beats themselves from this album, like some vocals and some rhymes would be excellent across them.
Yeah.
There's an artist that I'm very fond of is Mega Ran, who does a lot of lyrics and rapping over like Mega Man songs and Final Fantasy songs, and this would be right up his alley. Really cool stuff. Okay, so now. We'll end the show with some more of these beats, but for now, we're going to move on to the rest of the bonus round. Pernell, we are up to you.
And unfortunately, my track cannot sound good in the club.
Or a different kind of club?
It might be a different kind of club, but definitely not the club from our previous fantastic sound. But hopefully it's enjoyed nonetheless, because it's great. This is a guitar cover for the Termina field theme from The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, and it is done by Deku SC. Welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to that guitar cover of the Termina field theme from The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask on the Nintendo 64, and then again every other console that Nintendo's made afterwards. Covered by Deku SC, originally composed by Koji Kondo. I'm one of those guys who just always has had a soft spot for Majora's Mask despite never completing it, because I just suck at time management in games a lot of the time. And because of just how differently this game played compared to other Zeldas at that time. Just both the way that the narrative was compiled and how you were expected to progress through it, the darker atmosphere that the game provided to the player. It was a fantastic game to play, and the Termina Field theme resonated with me very well from playing. So hearing this felt honestly very nice.
Yeah,
I like what he did with it.
Yeah, I like where he went with it. I'm don't want to say I'm not surprised that that's where you went with looking for music. So I went in a different direction. This is Zelda arranged music for an official title. This is from the Cadence of Hyrule for the Nintendo Switch. Composed this track in particular is composed and arranged by Danny Baranowsky, and this is a Crypt of the Necrodancer starring Zelda, the Cadence of Hyrule. This is the intense version of the Windmill Hut. So this is as enemies start coming after you and start moving around. And I tried to find some music that was a little bit more on the chiller, funkier side of things. It's a little different. So this is the Windmill Hut from Cadence of Hyrule, composed by Danny Baranowsky. That was the Windmill Hut from Cadence of Hyrule, composed by or arranged by Danny Baranowsky. And yeah, very, very smooth and jazzy. He really played around with the melody of the original song in a way that I enjoyed very much.
I did too.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think.
No, I was saying go ahead because I do that thing where I jump.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best Zelda remixes I've ever heard, and it just sounded great. And Windmill Hut is also, I think, my all-time favorite Zelda song.
It's very good.
Nice.
It's got a jazzy kind of sound to it, and in which some of the other songs within Zelda has more of like an epic, militaristic, like military style drums to it. This is really neat. So in classic Crypt of the Necrodancer, which is a rhythm-based kind of RPG, kind of roguelike game, which I'm not going to get into. I tried playing the first one, and I found it incredibly difficult. But they
made this one easier, though. If you ever tried it,
but
it's easier to handle.
But what's great about this is that, in keeping with the same theme of that first game, is that they have multiple artists doing different remixes and arrangements of all of these songs. Where in the first game, it was all original music and different remixes and arrangements of that new original song, generally composed by Danny Baranowsky. In this one, it's all Zelda music composed by Koji Kondo and all these other Japanese composers, all these different styles. And so you can play the stages in different ways and different intensities depending on the music. So hearing this style of music within a rhythm game is always really interesting to me. I'm used to like the high intensity techno and drum and bass music. So, but yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. So for more information on the bonus round, part of our show, you can go to rhythmandpixels.com. We have links to Bandcamp and SoundClouds and for all of these artists. And for Michael's music, go to GameChops.com. And there you can find links to Zelda and Chill and Zelda and Chill Part 2, where you can buy the music and download it, or even download the vinyl. You can buy the vinyl for your own collection. Okay, thanks for joining us on episode 25-9 of Rhythm and Pixels. This is our Zelda focus, our Zelda-ish focus.
Zelda Plus.
Yeah. With Zelda and Chill composer Mikel. Mikel, thank you very much for coming on our show.
Thanks for having me.
We talked a lot about games. We talked a lot about music. So I have to ask, of all of the styles that you've worked in, do you think that hip hop or that kind of chill hop lo-fi sound is a style that you're going to stay in, or are there other styles that you enjoy playing with?
I think I'm gonna stay in it a bit, but I think lately I've been enjoying more upbeat style of music and more punchy and different styles. But
energetic.
Yeah, exactly. Like the San Andreas theme song mostly, and
Would you say that the lockdown has maybe changed the way you approach music or the way you're listening to music at all?
Not really, no. Because I had a break of making music this year, and then I continued because I moved into a new apartment, and most of the tracks were finished already. I just had to do some few adjustments, and that's why it wasn't affected as much as I think. Yeah.
I found that when looking for new music in the past year, I've been trying to find more upbeat, optimistic, positive sounds, just for my own mental health.
No.
Pernell, I don't think you've changed much.
I pretty much haven't, because even before this whole thing, my music taste has always been based around the scene I'm in, the environment. I've always generally wanted peppy, lively, energetic music, but if I'm at work and I have a deadline coming up, I usually want intense music. If I'm at the gym, I want intense music, but if I'm in the kitchen cooking or something, I would like something more laid back and relaxed, I play music that suits my situation.
No.
Well, Mikel, again, thank you for joining us on the show. Is there, we talked about the Zelda and Chill albums, but is there anything else that you're working on or anything else that you would like to plug, or anyone else's work that you would like to plug before we go for the day?
I'm working on a small album with my brother, which will hopefully release early 2001. Then, like I mentioned before, with this friend of mine, some tracks, and otherwise I'm working. I've started rapping again with a good friend, but it's going to be in German. So, but it's also
honestly, I'll be blunt. It's in German, but that doesn't make it lack an international appeal. I've been a big fan of lyrics that I don't understand, because when you don't understand it, but they flow with the beat, it just comes across as another instrument at that point.
But those are all of the projects, and
And if you have any links to those or anything that is available, send them to me through Twitter or wherever, and I can have those available to our listeners through the show notes and through our website. Great. But for our listeners, if you have any track suggestions or topic suggestions, or if you're a musician and would like to get in touch with us, the best way to do that is by email.
rhythmandpixels@hotmail.com.
And for a full track listing, for all of this show and all of our shows, and access to all of our shows, then go to the website,
rhythmandpixels.com.
You can check us out on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, all those places. It's just Rhythm and Pixels. We have a Discord server if you'd like to come in and stop in and say hi. We sometimes hang out in there. We have a lot of other listeners that hang out in there too. Our Discord server is linked on our website, and you can probably find it somewhere on the Facebook page as well. Go to youtube.com/rhythmandpixels. There we have a 24/7 radio stream playing nothing but 8-bit and 16-bit classic music and deep cuts. It's about to get another update, another injection of new music. It has over 800 classic tracks handpicked by Pernell and myself and some other podcast hosts. So check that out, youtube.com/rhythmandpixels. And if you'd like to support the show, just tell people about it. That's the best way to do it. If you
gift it to them for Christmas,
put it on a little thumb card. Yeah, just give them your iPhone. That's fine. And then just say, listen to this thing. Or you can listen to this thing. Or you can go to patreon.com/rhythmandpixels. Every week you'll get special access to a prequel episode of me and Pernell kind of catching up on the week. And you also get access to a monthly live streamed episode where you can kind of join us on the chat and while we're recording, and we can tell jokes and we have quizzes and questions during the show itself. We also like to thank everybody at the end of our episodes. Frankly Zappa, That Nick Walker, Mike Myers, Ed Wilson of the VG Embassy, Mats Holmqvist, Michael Jennings, Davey Cakes, Justin Schneider from the podcast XVGM Radio, Sonic Medley, Taco, Harold Howard, Dave Taylor, Reinhard Selkova, Andreas Millerberg, Dan Lafton, I said Lafton.
Dan Lafton!
Lafton. Sleepy S'more, Stephen Miller, The Autistic Gamer 89, Cameron Worma, Christopher Shenstrom, Bobby Arson from One Up Funk. Check them out on Instagram at One Up Funk. So What Up Funk. Wicked Sephiroth, Carlos, Kung Fu Carlito from the Heroes 3 podcast, all about Asian cinema and Kung Fu movies. Michael Bridgewater from the fantastic The Forever Sound Version VGM podcast. And Brian Pitt. So thank you all and many more for your continued support of our little program. Seeing your names every week.
Wholeheartedly appreciate it.
Yeah, it really motivates us to do more and to do better and just to keep going and listening to great music. So next week we should have another special guest or another fun episode.
It could go either way.
But we're coming to the end of 2020. I know that we're all looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a great year next year, 2021. Well, I think we'll have a special New Year's episode. I want to thank our guest again, Michael. Michael, thank you so much for spending your evening with us.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me.
All right.
It was our pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to Rhythm and Pixels. My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm Pernell.
Have a great week and be safe.
And remember, we were talking earlier on the episode in regards to, starting franchises and various entry points into said franchises. And you generally have a scenario sometimes where people will try to tell you, exactly how you're supposed to experience a game, how you're supposed to enter a franchise. Basically trying to tell you how to engage art. But though everyone has their own way of doing that, at the end of the day, it really falls on us just to kind of, you can take the suggestion, but no one can genuinely tell you or demand of you how to engage art. You engage it how you see fit. If you want to start at the end or at the beginning of a franchise line, you do that. If you want to start with the spin-offs and not the main line, you do that. All that matters is that you enjoy the time you spend playing it and you form your own feelings about the franchise or the game or the experience or the music or whatever you're going into. It's all about you. Don't let people demand that you do something that doesn't go along with your personal interests. It's not worth it.